Hey everyone, I'm Rania Rizvi, the Inside Beat editor at the Daily Targum, and I'm here with head copy editor Nicole Falcone and Inside Beat correspondent Lauren Bailey to spill the tea on growing up and how college has changed us as people. So, guys, let's talk about it. So, first thing, let's go back to the early 2000s. So, are you guys 2000s babies? Yes, no?
Yes.
You're 99.
I was born in 2000, exactly.
No, 2000 is better. We're definitely much more elite. But so we basically had like the same childhood as like children of Gen Z. So like what are some aspects of childhood or like growing up that you guys really miss?
Yeah, also I'm Lauren. Hi. I think just honestly not having to care about anything. Like I wrote in my story for this week an image of like being in the backseat of my mom's minivan with like my iPod shuffle, like just like listening to music and like going to hang out with my friends and playing sports and not ever experiencing anything like bad or seeing anything bad and just not caring and just like loving the life I was living. Like
Being
that
able
is
to
really
be present in a moment.
yes.
What about you, Nicole?
I definitely miss the like large portion of life that was centered around imagination. I would have to say time in elementary school, like anything you would do at recess or even the things you would learn in class were so imagination based. Like if you were playing a game at recess, like when people would play like house at recess or something like that, it felt so important. Like the role I was given in the game, which I was stuck being the responsible 8-year-old who did her homework, which I was like out of this trope for a game. But to me, the drama of like playing a game or who got what part and then it translating back into the classroom and our dynamic of being friends in class, like the role that imagination and just like outside of it just being like, yeah, there was classwork, but there was also like such a big place for having fun, and that fun being like so like that fun a lot of times was like tied to mimicking like the adult world. And I think that's right. Because now that you're in the adult world, I mean, sometimes it seems glamorous, but sometimes it really doesn't. But I just love
most of the time it's trash, in my opinion.
Okay, I kind of, still like to romanticize my own life, but as a child, like to me, like having a cubicle in office sounded really glamorous.
Right.
Right.
Thing at that time period when you would see the adults around you, like I was obsessed with the concept of teacher talk, what teachers gossiped about in their lounge lunch. I always wanted to know. My second grade teacher would come to my third grade teacher's room, and she would always give like a gossipy rundown on her day and how someone stole her probiotic yogurt from the refrigerator. Love that. I was like, I want to be that person when I'm in a
I think like I totally resonate with what both of you guys are saying. I think like the best way to summarize it would be just missing this idea of being naive and it's okay. Because when you're an adult and you're naive, like you don't understand certain aspects of the world, or like maybe you choose not to see something so cynically, you get vilified for it. You're stupid, you're not realistic, like you're gonna die like that. You're never gonna make it out there if if you don't understand how everything works instantly, like once you get out of there. And it is something that I think a lot about because I'm going to be a senior next year. And I think about how I'm a business major. So I think about how I'm going to be in like the corporate workforce. I'm going to be working with people who are much older than me, and they're going to expect me to know what they know. But the gap is so unfair. Like you're 35, you've been through 15 more years of life, but I have to catch up. I have to understand, because if I don't, then people use your naivety against you. Like I think naivety is one thing, is like when you're younger, it's like a beautiful thing, that you don't understand the world, that you think like a cubicle is like so amazing. It feels like a New York City skyscraper. But then when you're older, it turns into a weapon almost. And people are like, oh, I can get it my way because this person doesn't understand how the world works. And it's sad to see like how having a more innocent perspective on things can actually harm you as you get older. So speaking about like this idea of how things have changed over time, what are some of your hopes and dreams that you guys had as kids, and how have they changed over time?
Oh my gosh. I wanted to be everything when I was a kid. I was like, I'm going to be an Olympic swimmer because I loved Michael Phelps. I'm like, I'm going to be an architect, an engineer, anything that I was interested in for like 3 days, I would just form my whole life around. And like, I was like, I'm going to do all these amazing things and no one can stop me and whatever. And now like, I still kind of feel that way, but everything that I wanted to do, I'm like, that is just so unrealistic and also not even things I even enjoy anymore. So I just feel like everything that I've experienced and grown into myself with is just so not what I thought it was going to be, but I think in a good way.
Yeah, and going off of the idea of like, it's not realistic. Like what would you say like made you realize that? Like what was that sort of moment or like memory that you have or like the glam behind having a dream or doing something that you're only interested in for 3 days, like that started disappearing and you started realizing there's like a high level of pragmatism actually that's behind having a dream.
Absolutely. I think like for me, I had all these like huge, like I said, I literally wanted to be an Olympic swimmer. Like, what was that? I don't really know. I literally stopped swimming when I was in like 6th grade. So I don't know why I thought that was going to work out. But I think like all of the dreams that I had were these like super high up things that I wanted to do because I wanted people to look at me and be like, that's really cool that she can do that. You know what I mean? But I think realizing that that I don't need to do things to get approval from other people and I need to do things that are going to make me happy and things that I'm passionate about. I think that completely changed what my dreams are now.
I see. What about you, Nicole? Like, do you resonate with that? Like this idea that your dreams were shaped by like receiving like some sort of like admiration or validation from like an outside crowd, or like did you never have a set dream? Like how do you like relate to that idea?
I feel very differently from it because I've kind of like I still feel very consistent with the dreams and ideals I had in like 3rd grade. I just feel like they're more advanced now. I was always a very individualistic and temperamental kid, and I had a lot of loud and strong opinions. And I didn't necessarily place my interests or passions into particular things like, oh, I want to be an Olympic swimmer, I want to be an astronaut, I want to be a teacher. I never was really, and still am not someone who has a dream job or career in mind. Just to me, as long as it was that job or career makes me happy, I can get some entertainment out of it, and it fulfills interests that I have, I was always fine with it. So growing up, I was always really into reading. I was very much into math. I've always been a very social and outgoing person. I love interacting with people, and those things have totally stayed the same. It's just maybe what I've channeled those abilities
Energies like towards has changed.
Right. And that has changed. But the interest itself, since I've never been so particularly specific, I don't feel too much different from who I was then. It's just now I have focuses to put those things to.
It's really interesting. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I just find it really interesting hearing both of you speak and it's so interesting that we're all here together talking about this because I feel like I'm a blend of the both of you. Like growing up as a kid, like I had so many different career paths I wanted to do. Like I was convinced that I was going to be a pop singer. Like I was an honors choir. Like a sis was going to snap at the American Idol one day. And then obviously, then that started falling apart. And then I was like, okay, I'm going to go to law school. I'm going to be a lawyer. I'm going to be a baddie. I wanted to be like Elle Woods. And then that didn't work out because I don't like school. So then literally the way that I decided my career path was that my econ teacher, like he came up to me one day and he's like, you're doing really well in this class. Like, why don't you have you ever considered doing business? And I was like 16. I had no idea. Like I was in my emo angsty phase and I was like, nothing matters. So I was like, wait a minute. Like that's an intriguing idea. And I looked into it and I realized that like business and like the intersection with like creativity and like how some like business industries like makeup or fashion are really artistic is like kind of how I decided what I wanted to do, because like Nicole, I always knew I was like an arts inclined person, which is why I'm doing my journalism major as well. And like, I'm creative and like I think out of the box. But then like Lauren, like I also felt like some of the things I wanted to do, like they were being shaped by other people's expectations. Like wanting to go to law school was like the Asian culture coming into play. Like you have to pick a pragmatic job because there's no business women in my family, or if there are, like they're very few in numbers and they still don't like, they have very like day-to-day like 9 to 5 lives. They're not very highly involved in the organizations that they work for. So I feel like it's super interesting how like I'm kind of caught in the middle, because on one hand I am a dreamer, but then on the other hand I feel like when you're younger there's certain things about you that are inherent to the kind of person that you are, and they will carry like throughout your life, kind of like how Nicole mentioned. So kind of like going off of this idea of like getting older and pursuing ambitions, I think when we first step into college, we still have that bit of naivety. Even though we've gotten rid of a decent amount as we've grown older and went through high school, I think we still come in with like fresh eyes because college is like this new entity that we don't quite understand. With things that we don't understand, there's always some sort of fear attached to it.
Oh,
So what
absolutely.
would you guys say were like some of your fears in pursuing the goals that you
Mm.
wanted to do? And it doesn't even have to be like large goals, like even fears maybe behind like picking your majors or picking a specific track, like, or even picking like to do a job that you have right now. Like what are some of those fears and why do you think that they're so common amongst us?
I think building off of what you said regarding bringing together creative and technical things, that was a big thing for me because I very much wanted to go into creative or writing fields and I didn't, but I also really, really like math and science and I didn't want
Right.
to sacrifice writing and creativity for STEM just because STEM is seen as something really popular and is a
It's
growing.
more pragmatic, it's a more safer
Yeah.
choice, right?
So going into college, I decided I was either going to double major in math and journalism or English and physics. And I just needed to figure that out. I came to those combinations, which are, again, I know are like a little bit not traditional. I came to it senior year in high school because in my advanced physics class, we had to write a final paper that'd be 10 pages or more on any topic that we wanted. And that Pi Day, so March 14th, 2018, was the day that Stephen Hawking died. So it inspired me to go and read his book, A Brief History of Time. And upon doing that, I thought the field of cosmology was just so inspiring and interesting. So I ended up writing my paper kind of based around that subject. And I got very into it and I wrote 19 pages on it and bought dry ice from a man under a bridge. And it was a very exciting time period. And it made me
A bridge?
under a bridge. Yeah, it's not like
Why are you doing drug deals to get ice?
No,
Like
it was at like
actual
a
ice.
foot
We're
of a
not like
bridge.
talking about street name ice.
No, but it was so exciting and I was very much into it. And one of the theories presented in Stephen Hawking's book, as he was talking about, there's a big question in terms of if the universe is a closed universe or if it's an open universe or if it's bounded and unbounded. And his proposition was that it's closed, that it's unbounded but closed. And I just could not understand how something can be unbounded and closed at the same time. And similarly, I wasn't reading Shakespeare's Hamlet at the time, but I had read it the year before, but it's one of my favorite Shakespeare plays. So I like revisit it occasionally. And there's a quote in it in Act 2, Scene 2, in which Horatio says to Hamlet, I could be bounded in a nutshell and count myself a king of infinite space. And that to me helped me.
That is so fascinating.
The
like
physics concept.
Separate texts connect in that way.
Yes, because it helped me understand the physics concept, because to be trapped in something but be a king of infinite space, it's like a globe. The globe doesn't have bounds. There are no edges. So it's unbounded, but it's also contained. And with being able to see how something totally random, English class, was able to come into conjunction with science and actually help the science make sense. I was like, these majors actually go perfectly together. Physics used to be considered a liberal arts anyway, like 100 years ago. So I was like, this makes a lot of sense. And it's not as random or as silly or as trivial as it may seem to pick those two things as majors. So then second semester, my freshman year, I took physics classes as well as English classes. I realized that this is definitely going to be it. I couldn't necessarily really see myself doing any other majors at that point, and then I declared those majors.
But then how does that tie into like the idea of fear? Because it sounds like you were always sure of what you wanted to do. And I don't actually think that's the case for most people. Like you're kind of like an what's the word? Like an extraneous case. I think most of us actually don't know what we want. I went into the business school because like I said before, like, there's obviously like somebody validated me and told me that I was good at this thing. And when I looked into it, I realized, like this is pragmatic. I can make a lot of money off of this. And also like, I can still infuse the creative edge into it somehow. But then kind of like how Lauren mentioned, this idea of like, you want to prove a point to people, right? So like with knowing like my family's background, like almost all of my family like lives in Pakistan, so inherently their opportunities are limited. Like they can still be very successful in their own regards, but compared to like Pakistan success versus United States success, like there's a very large gap. So I think that external pressure drives me and also makes me scared at the same time. Like it drives me because it's like I want to make use of my education, like there's like people in my family who like got their whole degrees and they can't use them because they went into marriages that suck and their husbands don't want them to make it in the business world because that just wouldn't be very feminine of them. So for me, I'm like, okay, I have this opportunity. I need to make the most of it because back home, that's not the case. But then at the same time, there's that fear, like, what if I fail? Like, what if I don't actually do everything that I set myself out to do? Then I'm not going, then I can't avenge them in some sort of way. It's like a strange savior complex almost. And I know it's not the healthiest way of looking at things, and I know it's not necessarily true. Like, it's not my job to like carry their legacy that they could have carried out had their circumstances been different. But it just like, you think about people who have it worse off or who have less than you, and like you want to use the power that you have to make things better for them. Like, I want to know that one day I can use my career to do something beneficial for like all the women back home who are stuck in those situations but don't have the finances to get out, if that like kind of makes any sense. But Lauren, I know that you actually switched school 3 times, so maybe you can resonate with that, with what I'm saying, where it's like, oh, I gotta do something to do it. So can you like talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so like I said, I've always wanted to do a million different things. I've always been so terrified of people almost just being disappointed in me.
Right, right.
Like, I feel like I've always just been such an overachiever. Like, I played a million sports in high school. I was in all the AP classes. I always like felt like I needed to be this like elite thing as to not be a failure, which I feel like was so almost toxic for me, because I was like, I have to do this, I have to do this, I have to do this, but I never found anything that I loved, and I was never feeling like I was in my place with the people that I loved and like in the right place, whatever. So my freshman year of college, I went to University of Pittsburgh for a year, and I was studying athletic training. I wanted to do pre-med, I wanted to do all of these things, but it felt like something was missing. Like, I thought I loved it because I was always a math and science girl. I played sports. I wanted to help people. And that was always also like the biggest thing in my entire life. I was like, no matter what I'm doing, I need to be helping people. That's the most important thing to me. And then I got there, and like all of the expectations that I had and all of the hype that I put around it of going to this like amazing school and having this amazing major, and like I was like, I'm going to meet all these great people, which I did meet great people that I still am very good friends with, which is great. But it wasn't my place. It wasn't what I was supposed to be doing. And
that's the worst thing, right? Like, just feeling like when you know on like a psychosomatic level that like this just feels off, like this is not where I'm supposed to be. And it's like frustrating, because I think a lot of us feel like we have to live a linear life. Like, we have to be committed, lock ourselves into commitments, whether that be school or marriages or relationships or whatnot. Like, they're like, the way life is presented to us is as if it's a line, and we have to lock ourselves in. We have to go from one dot on the segment to the next, when in reality life is anything but a line.
Right.
And I don't know why we perpetuate this like system, you know, of like having a linear lifestyle, when life
it's not like that, and that's okay.
Quite often proves otherwise.
Right.
Yeah.
But I think I realized like while I was there, even in my first semester, I was like, this is not it for me, like whatever. But I think that I was so terrified of leaving this, I guess, image of what I had built up for myself and what people expected of me, that I almost just stayed there and did my major and whatever, even though it wasn't me, because I was so scared of like admitting that. What
were you majoring in before?
Athletic training, and I was on a pre-med track.
Okay.
And I just was so terrified of people looking at me and being like, she failed, which is so not the case. But like, just in my brain, I like built up this huge thing, and I have great people in my life that were going to support me, and they did. But I felt like I was like messing up if I didn't stick with what I was doing, because I had always stuck with what I was doing.
Absolutely.
And it's also interesting because I feel like subconsciously I kind of knew that I was going to leave and not chase what I was doing at all, because I remember the day I graduated high school, I wrote a letter to myself to open when I graduate college. And I remember there being something in there like, you're going to Pitt to do this, but if it doesn't work out, that's okay. And I don't know why
it's like you always kind of knew, but you were like scared to do it, and you have to like go through the motions and being confronted by your fears to actually like go for it. It's really interesting how we always know, but like so much fear and like hesitation and like just expectations blocks us from unlocking our true selves almost.
Exactly. And it's interesting too, because when I told my mom I wanted to leave and not like do that major anymore, she knew I was going to do that the whole time, but she knows that I'm such an independent person, and I needed to work things out for myself and experience the things that I did in order to grow out of it and find my place and my people and my career and everything that I love. I remember telling her, and she was like, yeah, I could have told you that. And I was like, okay. But I'm thankful that she at least didn't tell me that before because I needed to do that for myself. And going there like is never something I've regretted. Like it completely changed the course for the last 2 years of my life. And I've
Right.
fallen in love with myself and my people around me and what I'm studying and all of my goals and everything. And it was terrifying, but it was what I needed to do.
I think that's very courageous. I feel like a lot of people feel the way that we felt, which is like you have to just do this one thing because it's stable, it's secure, and like if you're not stable and secure, then like you're basically a failure, you know, like you'll be a hippie on the street, like you won't get anything done in life, you'll be homeless, you know. There's a lot of and you know, like I think capitalism also plays heavily into it, which is like a whole separate topic. Like capitalism has like so many other issues, but I think like, you know, living in a like capitalist society, like we're taught like XYZ things because if there's a slight chance that you might not be a productive working person in a workforce, then they have to put these nuances of fear into like education and like our expectations for how our future plays out, because God forbid you don't follow the linear line that capitalism so desperately wants you to follow so that you can continue making them more money. Being able to have your own convictions and do what is best for you regardless of societal pressures, I think is like it's really courageous. And I don't think people who like switch schools or switch majors or decide like, you know, this isn't for me are given enough credit. I think there's like a stigma that like, oh, like they just couldn't do it, you know, which is absolutely not true.
Right.
Why is it so shameful to admit that maybe this isn't for you, you know?
Right.
Anybody's
And
capable of anything, but it's a matter of like, is this like in alignment with the kind of person you are? Like, does this make you happy on like a profound level? Yeah.
Right.
But you were saying like a good point. What were you saying, Lauren?
I was just gonna say, it's just so interesting too, because I think that, like you said, the whole linear thing, that's not the way it should be. You should be able to like feel comfortable doing whatever makes you happy. And I found it very interesting that when I transferred and like decided that I was gonna leave and do all of these things, I had so many friends from high school that reached out to me and were like, I am thinking about transferring too. How did you decide to do that? Like, I don't know what to do. Like, I feel stuck. And I would just always tell them, like, give it a chance, you know, because I think at first, my first semester being there, I was like, okay, maybe it's just me getting adjusted to college because everybody has a hard time freshman year. And I was like,
Right,
maybe
absolutely.
whatever. But I was like, if you give it that chance so that you're not giving up on it and you can feel content with yourself knowing that you tried and that you fully understand that like you're supposed to be doing something else, then there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. Because if you stay in a place that you're not happy, or if you're doing something that you're not happy for other reasons other than your own what you need, then it's going to be like that for the rest of your life, you know.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
Knowing that having that boundary is very important to like your own mental sanity.
Yeah.
My freshman year, I lived my roommate, who's actually one of my really good friends now. She was in pharmacy school, and literally from day one, literally from the first day of classes, I knew she hated it. And
Mhm.
I was like, why are you doing this? Like, you don't like pharmacy. I was like, oh, why are you in the pharmacy school? And she's like, I like bio. And I was like, babe, why aren't you majoring in bio then? She's like, huh, like my dad thinks me being in pharmacy school would be good, so I did it. And I was like, girl, you can't do 6 years of Rutgers pharma just saying that you like bio, like that doesn't work.
Right.
And I just saw her like suffer, like the way she get anxiety attacks before exams, like she would just like be crying like middle of the day because she just couldn't like bring herself to do her work. Like you really like set yourself up for
Yeah.
misery when you like live your life for somebody else.
Absolutely.
You know, and kind of going off of this idea, like I think the point you mentioned about freshman year being really difficult is it resonates with a lot of people. I know my freshman year was really difficult in like many different ways. Maybe not so much academically, but personally, like having to adjust to such a different social climate, and then also confronting like insecurities from high school really came into play. So, what are like things that you like walked into college with that you wanted to change when you got there? So, like for me personally, in high school, I had like a reputation for being like this very like outspoken and like confident person. Like everybody thought that, oh, like Rania is really opinionated, so she's really confident and she like has it all together and nothing gets to her. But like that wasn't true. Like the opinionated part like is true, which is probably why I like to talk and do podcasts. But the part about like being genuinely confident and like not letting anything get to me, like that was just not true. I just wasn't wearing it on my face.
Mhm.
And because I didn't wear what was going on the inside on my face, like everybody thought they could just like take their digs at me, say whatever they wanted to me, or like, you know, oh, like Rania doesn't care. Like Rania's not going to be affected by this, or like she doesn't care about anybody, you know, because she's so opinionated. And I started feeling like there was this expectation of me like to be this super confident, like secure person who's always unbothered, when like it wasn't true. Like I like was just like I was like depressed, like I didn't feel good about myself quite often, but I felt like almost like I had imposter syndrome, where it's like I had to live up to this expectation because it's like this is the precedent I've set. And it would be so disappointing for everybody if like I'm preaching about confidence and being this happy person when in reality I didn't feel that way at all when I came into college. So I think one thing that I really wanted to kind of work on just overall was just like being like authentic with myself, you know, like stop like playing a double role, like stop having to feel like you need to split your personality and compartmentalize like your pain or your fears, because they're not meant to be like that. They're part of the person you are. Like they shape your perspective. They're so integral to like your identity, you know, but like
Absolutely.
yeah, Nicole, like I saw you nodding along with that. Like I feel like maybe you resonate with some of this. Like what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I definitely resonate a lot with what you were saying about authenticity. For me in high school, my high school is from people all over Monmouth County. So I never really got to hang out with people outside of school much during my time in high school. So the typical, high school tropes of, oh, you go to school, then you go on these adventures with your friends after the school day is done, I didn't really experience much of. Obviously, I had friends in high school, but I never really got to run around and do trivial things and have adventures and like create these storylines and themes that I always wanted to. I was very academically focused, and that was the majority of what my high school experience was about. So coming to college, it felt to me, it almost felt like one big sleepover. And suddenly I had a plethora of people to get to know. There were so many experiences you could just access in an instant, whether like a school sanctioned function or friends inviting you along to do something or people from your dorm. And to be able to not get lost in that and do things that you find that you actually enjoy and gravitate towards the right people was a little bit of a challenge at first, because it was so much coming to me at once and I was so eager to take any and all of it in. Mm-hmm. I think in the end, I navigated it pretty well, and I was able to finally get to experience and become the person that I wanted to become. But it was just the matter of being able to discern what was good and what was not, and what's worth my time and what was not, and just all the people I met and the personalities I encountered, and being able to present myself not in a way that was nervous or unsure, and sometimes having to kind of put on a little bit of a facade of being overly confident, like you were saying, to at least get me in the spot of the positions I wanted to be. And then from there, internally, I had to adjust and become truly confident and not just confident as a front.
Yeah, for sure. So we are running a little bit low on time, and there is one more important question that I really want to ask you ladies. But Lauren, did you have anything that you wanted to like add on about that?
Yeah, I just think my biggest thing when I came into college was I needed to start looking out for myself. I have always had this big, it sounds kind of cheesy, but I feel like my like purpose for myself is to be helping other people. And I like experienced a lot of loss in high school, and I went through a lot of things, but I felt like if I wasn't being completely selfless 100% of the time, then I was completely selfish. If I let myself process an emotion or think about something that had to do with me, then I was like the worst person in the whole world, which is so not true. And I like really just had to force myself to learn, like, yes, you can help people and you could whatever, make that priority, but just figuring out how to take care of myself and help myself was like the hardest but like most important thing that I think that I've ever done.
And I agree with that, because it's easy to look back on your past with disdain or kind of advise your own history as everything negative. But instead of doing that, you can just take notes and lessons from it and just to apply to your future self. You don't look back on everything negatively or try to write what it meant or put it in a negative light.
Yeah. So we have 3 minutes left. So I wanted all of us to answer this one final pertinent question. What do you think your younger self would think of you today? So I can start off, and then Lauren, you can go, and Nicole, like you can wrap this up for us. So for me personally, I would like to think that my younger self would be, I would be proud. I like to think that I've worked as hard as I possibly can to become the person that I need to be in the moment that I'm in right now. I think when I was younger, like I always glamorized like girls who were like badass and like didn't care and like were edgy and wore like leather jackets and were like, I don't care about the rules. And like I had that whole phase in high school, but I like took it to extremes of like being rebellious. So now I think I've like been able to find that balance where it's like, badassery doesn't have to be like, oh, screw the establishment every 2 seconds. Like it can be like being confident in your own skin, like standing up for yourself, having your convictions, having your beliefs, and being just an authentic person. And you can be a little rebellious, you can be different, you can like have like a good fashion sense and whatnot. So I think I've been able to like blend like my expectation of what it means to be confident within one's own skin with like what it actually is in practice. But not Nicole, Lauren, how do you relate to this idea?
I agree. Well, first, I think that younger Lauren would look at me and be like, what the heck did you do? This is not what we planned at all. But I think that she would be over the moon happy and like proud for like one, getting through all of the things that like I've been through in my life, but two, just being genuinely happy, I think, in my life for the first time and being completely obsessed with the people in my life and just having the crazy support system that I've never had before. And I think she'd be proud for like pursuing my passions and also learning how to dress. I think that she would be very happy about that because I was a mess when I was a kid, but I am very happy and I think that she would be really happy with me too.
So I think my younger self would see me currently as someone that she would have been intrigued by, and I wouldn't want it any other way, to have finally become some sort of glamorous character that my younger self.
Intrigued.
Yeah, my younger
quite
self
the
would have
word.
totally seen someone like me walking by, whether, I don't know if I consider myself an adult or like a college student, regardless, would have seen someone like me walking by and have been, oh, that's like a character I want to get to know. And I think I've started to get there. And my younger self was a bit of a character too. Like I would wear berets and I had hair that was cut to my chin that I decided to get because like one night I went dancing at my friend's house, then went to the zoo the next day. Like I never became a boring or more situated person, but I think I've now finally gotten to live the life that I wanted or was trying to emulate then. And I think I would be proud and impressed with myself, most definitely.
I agree.
Oh my god, the way that you were just talking, you're like this glamorous character that like you like would look up to. Like, have you guys ever seen that TikTok with the audio where it's like, oh, I don't dress cool for men, like I dress cool because I want 13-year-old girls to see me on the street.
Yes.
Like, wow, this is so
Literally.
like you're
Absolutely.
the embodiment of that audio. That's so awesome.
That is absolutely that.
Yeah, I'm so glad that like all of us are kind of at that place in our lives where we're upperclassmen, so like we've like been through the motions of Rutgers and college and like having time to like away from high school and from our home lives and just becoming the people that we're authentically meant to be. And I think one thing that I really just like want to leave with this note is that becoming your authentic self is an everyday process. It's something that changes constantly, and that's okay. This idea that being a constant and being a human being, they're not congruent. It doesn't work. Like we constantly will be changing our expectations and we'll meet new people and take their personality traits. Like we're constantly evolving human beings, and to just assume that, like, all right, I'm an adult now, like 10-year-old me said I was going to be in law school by this time, so I need to do it. That's not fair to yourself because you didn't take into account what happened in those 10 plus years of your life. Circumstances changes as people, and in life, again, it's not a line. It's honestly like a squiggle that quite just goes in on itself, honestly. But yeah, so I had a really awesome time speaking to you ladies today. Like we got in our bags, we got pretty deep in the bag. But so yeah, that's all for today. Join us next time on Targum Tea for more podcasts and for more of us getting in our bags. And make sure to follow the Daily Targum on our Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube for more content.